Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to MetalDisciple.com's The Week in Reviews. My name is George, and today I bring you some reviews from bands whose names I may mispronounce. First off, we have Tanger Cavalry, then we have Noise Pollution, and Mage, and an Italian band called either Malnat or perhaps Malnat. I can't be entirely sure. I couldn't find a pronunciation online anywhere. But the name will be up here in the corner when the review's going, so at least you can see the correct spelling. Anyway, let's get started. Right before the holidays, I came across an advertisement for Tanger Cavalry and their album Sunesu Cavalry. I believe I saw the ad in Metal Hammer or Terrorizer, though I don't recall which. I'm probably the only person who picks up these mags more for the ads than the articles. The album cover was what caught my eye. A dude with a big sword on a horse atop a pile of skulls will always pique my interest. Normally this is where my attention span would end. I might look the band up on YouTube to see if I can hear a clip, but then usually I move on. Then I noticed the band was from Beijing, China. I don't hear too much metal from China, so I kept digging. That was when I found out that not only does Tanger Cavalry play blackish metal with Chinese folk influences, but the band also utilizes Mongolian throat singing. That is definitely a metal first for me. Mongolian throat singing, for those who haven't heard it, is this unique, deep, throaty style of singing that reminds me of a human didgeridoo. The style can be cool to listen to, for a few minutes anyway, though to be honest, I tend to get bored really quickly. Combining it with heavy metal music, though, that is bloody brilliant. Throat singing blends quite naturally with metal, and since there are regular harsh vocals on the album as well, it wasn't too overwhelming. 5 minutes and one song stream later, I was fumbling for my credit card to order the CD from Metal Hell Records. From what I can tell, Tanger Cavalry is the work of just one man, which makes this album even more impressive. Sunesu Cavalry appears to be a remix and remaster of 2011's Cavalry Folk, with the new song, Warhorse. The album sounds very impressive production-wise, and even without the unique folk elements, this is an album to be reckoned with. Sunesu Cavalry is a welcome change of pace that introduces new elements to the metal genre. I love folk metal with Teutonic and Celtic flavoring, but I find this Asian folk element a new and exciting style. I highly recommend giving this album a listen. You thought the 80s were over, didn't you? Well, guess again, friend. Allow me to introduce you to Noise Pollution, an Italian hard rock glam band and their self-titled debut album. The only other band I'm aware of doing music anything like this right now is Steel Panther, and they are of course planting tongue firmly in cheek. Unlike Steel Panther, Noise Pollution is not doing this comically. They take these songs seriously. Now, I admit my knee-jerk initial reaction when I heard the first half of the first song was to be incredulous that anyone was still beating this dead horse. I decided to keep listening to see if this train would in fact derail as I expected it to. But by the end of the second song, I realized that I was actually starting to like these guys. These songs are certainly more accessible than the majority of metal bands out there right now, but these guys write songs that are both catchy and got my head bobbing. Think of Slave to the Grind era Skid Row, or one of my favorite bands that no one's ever heard of, Leatherwolf. Noise Pollution doesn't sound particularly like either of these bands, but they have that same catchy heaviness that gets the songs stuck in your head. So yeah, I think this is actually a pretty cool album. I really don't listen to this style much anymore, but that is probably because no one plays it. Noise Pollution makes it real easy to slip back into old habits. Mage is a stoner doom metal band from the UK, and Black Sands is their first album. Lately, I've been cruising Bandcamp for interesting new releases from bands that I haven't heard before. There's a nice mix of established acts along with bands that are unsigned and trying to get their material heard, so it gives me the opportunity to hear things that I might normally miss. A few weeks ago, while on one of my Bandcamp hunts, I came across this band called Mage, and their apparently self-released album, Black Sands. While there is a lot of cool music on Bandcamp, there is also a lot of shit. This particular day I was having no luck, and everything sounded awful, until I came across Mage. Mage has a fairly simple recipe that works really well. 1 part deep, heavy guitar and bass work laden with monster riffs. 1 part huge monster drums. One part clean yet raspy vocals that are both catchy and slightly menacing. The result is an album that probably should have been on my Best of 2012 list. There are riffs here that are so monstrous, I have to wonder if perhaps Tony Iommi is getting royalties on them. At the very least, I expect Tony would give them a nod of approval. The production sounds quite good as well. Oftentimes, bands this heavy come across sounding very muddy. I wouldn't say Black Sands is as crystal clear as I would like it, but they have done a better job with their sound than many other bands in the style that I've heard. You should head over to Bandcamp and give these guys a listen and lend them your support. Malnat, or Malnat, or however you say it, is an Italian melodic black metal band, and Principia Discordia is their 5th album. A lot of classic operas are sung in Italian, and even if one doesn't know what they are saying, the music can be very beautiful. The flip side of that coin is Malnat, or Malnat, who sing in Italian and find their beauty in darkness. I speak not a word of Italian, but Principia Discordia impressed me from the very first song. The songs have that huge, spacious sound like a Dimmu Borgir song, but without the overly symphonic cheese that goes with it. While I was working on my Best of 2012 list last week, I found myself struggling with whether this album should be included. It is a really good album, and despite not knowing the language, I like the novelty of metal sung in Italian. Ultimately, the album didn't make the list, but this was only because I couldn't bear to give up anything that was already on the list. For those, like me, that do not speak Italian, don't let the language barrier dissuade you from giving this album a chance. Please give these guys a listen. That's it for this week. If you're watching the playlist, stick around to hear songs from the bands. If you're not watching the playlist, get over there and listen to the playlist. See you next week.